Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody for being here. Last time, I know some of you were sadly disappointed that I did not talk in August about thematic philately, but about aerophilately and a bit postal history. But now I'm back to my roots in thematic philately. And the theme I've chosen is modern multiple frankings in thematic exhibits. Why did I choose this? So in in the past or over decades, there were always some uncertainty how to use thematic frankings in thematic multiple frankings, in thematic exhibits. And there is a historic reason behind this uncertainty, which is that if we go back by some 50 years or more, even more into the late 60s, into the early 1970s, the thematic philatelists of the first generation, they really struggled with getting enough material for their pages. And then some detected, oh, if I put a letter on my page, half of the page is already full. Nice. So what they did is they put very simple material, simple modern frankings, single frankings, mixed frankings, just to fill the pages. And so the FRP Thematic Bureau, they gave the recommendation then not to use this material because it's not good material. From this recommendation, something derived, which sounds crazy to me, but it's historical fact that many people thought that they must not use multiple frankings unless there is a thematic postmark or something alike on the cover. So covers only with thematic postmarks. And of course, this is a misunderstanding because many multiple frankings, as they are used in traditional philately and postal history as well, are simply very nice material. So why not to use them? My plan for today is that I will start with showing you some examples from one excellent exhibits. And then we will go just briefly to Del Campo and look what is available for everybody. What can you buy today if you like some multiple frankings for your own collection? And as a third part, I will give you an overview in how to evaluate these frankings. What is okay, what is good, what is very good. Yeah, so I developed a formula for this. It's not pure mathematics, but comes very close to it. So first then, let me go into one exhibit which was shown at our virtual Postal, the German virtual national exhibition of this year in September. And this is an exhibit about the PreColumbian cultures of Central and South America. So far, it has never been shown on FRP level, but it's excellent. I think, in my view, it's already one of the best exhibits which we are currently having in thematic philately. So if you look at the first frame, then you see at a glance that it is full of evidently very good proof material, original artworks, postal history material, and so on. So a very, very good exhibit philatelically, but there are also in the first frame show there are some multiple frankings. Here you have, for instance, 22 stamps of the vicuña on a registered letter from Peru to Suecia. Yeah, or you can go to the second frame of this fantastic exhibit. Again, you see at a glance there is a fantastic material in it. If you look, for instance, the first page already presents you the earliest known registered letter from Peru. Wow, that is something also for postal history. Or the next page has very nice varieties, stamp varieties, so traditionally. And the third page then again has a multiple franking. In this case, should be from Bolivia, the Jaguar with a multiple franking. So you can see, you can go to almost every frame, and if you look at it, you detect a nice multiple franking on it here, multiple 6 from Mexico, or go to the next frame. Here you have, for instance, from Peru, a multiple 15 on stamp. And it's always neatly described, what is it? And the collector tried to find out how the postage should be explained, just as you know it from traditional philately and postal history. So this material is available really in the top exhibits of thematic philately. And those who still think it's not appropriate material, I think they learned that it can really compare with other very good material in excellent exhibits. And these multiple frankings, they are available. Oh, see that I can switch here. Sorry, just technical matter. How to go? Now I can see it. Wanted to go to diciembre just for a moment. Many of you will know of this platform. This platform offers currently 26,300,000 philatelic items. So there should be something for everybody. I go to the stamp section and just take the first category, which is Africa, and enter, just to have a short search, enter a cover. So, and I see the first recent items. So this is always new. And here we have frankings from African countries on this page. And we can check through it. We see there are some FTC, of course. There are many single frankings. There are mixed frankings. However, if we scroll down, we should also find some multiple frankings, and then we can check if it's a nice one or not. This is normal definitives, thematically probably not very relevant. Let us show. Oh, that's nice. Is that? That's not a multiple franking, but it's a postage due cover. For those collecting Vikings, for instance, this would also be certainly a nice item with 2 shilling set franked as postage due, because the letter inland letter exceeding 2 ounces. So fine as well, €18.90. Certainly a dealer offering it. Let us see, we should find something nice in between, I'm sure. You see many mixed items. Oh, this should be one. Yeah, so we have 4 stamps here of Emir Abdelkader. Oh, this is one of the intellectual leaders of North Africa in the 19th century. And on the rear side of this letter, this cover, we have another 8 stamps. So we have a multiple 12 already spotted. And maybe you could do that. You could give a bid. Starting price is just €2 for a multiple 12. So here is, I show you that this material is available to everybody, and it's not necessarily expensive auction material. Yeah, you can find it for very cheap price. In this case, I would like to give a bit, but I cannot give because the seller refuses to send it to Switzerland. I can well understand Switzerland is not a very stable country, everything is in a mess. The post never arrives, so seller is absolutely right not to sell it to my country. Well, just as a small joke. So we have seen there is good thematic material with modern multiple frankings all around. We found it within a couple of seconds. And if you go through it for more time, you will identify a lot of nice material, and certainly with a bit of passion, with a bit of being patient, you will find something for your own collecting field as well. I switch now to the presentation mode for the main part. I have shown to you some such multiple frankings of a top exhibit. I have also some in my own exhibits. As you can see here, this is half of a page from my Australasian BirdLife exhibit. And you see or you may recall the maximum number which we have seen in the PreColumbian Culture exhibit was a multiple 22. Of course, I've chosen a multiple 23 now, just to have one more on top of that. And as you will see during the talk.
Sorry, we're not seeing that page.
Pardon? You can't?
We're not seeing that page.
You're seeing the one that says the title of your exhibit, of your presentation, I should say.
Why isn't it moving? So now it's better?
There it is.
Okay, great, thank you. So I have it on the other screen. Anyway, this is now a multiple 23, just one more than the multiple 22, which we have seen so far. And you will see during this talk that the odd numbers, the ampere numbers of multiple frankings are in generally even considerably scarcer than the pair numbers. Yeah, so this is an exhibit which was in the World Stamp Championship exhibit. So a modern one within frame of traditional postal history material and so on. You can easily show it because it is a very nice item. Fiji needed a 2-stamp cent, that's the history, the background, at all post offices, because within a very short time it raised the fee for the standard letter twice, from 16 to 18 cents and from 18 to 20 cents. And the new stamps were not delivered, and they had still a lot of old stamps, so they needed the 2-cent stamps at all post offices. But when the new stamps arrived, they didn't need it any longer. And here at a small agency of Vanuatu, postal agency, the postmaster decided to use up 23 of them on one registered letter. Yeah, so that was really neat for producing these letters. Otherwise, he could not get rid of his stock of stamps. So this can be shown even in very good exhibits. This is a second example, a page, which I made some 20 years ago, about a group of parrot species which only occur on the Pacific Islands, so endemic species. And each group of islands has its own species, and most of them are red and green, and some are a genetic variant, making them blue. So this contrast is very nice, especially because the original artwork on the left side shows the red and green variant of these species with a blue cap. And this blue cap was genetically the source of the blue color. So the multiple franking very well matches with also in size with the original artwork. So I decided to use it, even if in this case I'm quite sure that the cover is slightly overfranked, because if you can read it, it was sent to a Miss Hannelore Läge, who is my mother. and it was sent from my father at his, and in this letter, he reports that at his 63rd birthday, he opened his first coconut in his life on the island of Bora Bora. He took it from a coconut tree and he opened it himself. So he realized an old dream he had over decades of something he wanted to do once. So this is a commercial letter. However, the true postage was 90-some francs, but I was with him traveling, and so I asked him, please use 5 of these stamps so we have multiple franking. Okay, is this now a philatelic item? Is a philatelic letter? Yeah, it is influenced by a collector. It is slightly overfranked, but still it is very nice, so I think I can just use it in my exhibit, even if, of course, this is not a top item of it. Here you have a close-up of it. You can see it was sent at Bora Bora, and having these 5 stamps on it. What about mixed frankings? Usually in thematic philately, we don't use mixed frankings at all, because they detract from the theme. However, as I explained to you, this genetic variance of very closely related species, I think this, for instance, would be a nice mixed franking because it shows one blue variant and a red and green variant of the same bird group. So here I could work with both of them thematically. So in this exceptional case, even a mixed franking would do. Here it is really attractive, and 41 francs that should fit with the normal postage. Single frankings, we are not in general very happy with it. If there's just a stamp and there is nothing special on that letter, it fills the space. But it consumes the space, and so we cannot do more on our pages. Yeah, multiple frankings, as we have already seen a couple of examples, they are very nice indeed. So, what is the value of multiple frankings? I have explained it to you from the thematic standpoint already. And I have been critical to myself, saying one of the covers is a little bit under question. It is slightly overfranked. There is a collector behind who wanted that this cover comes into existence. So we have to see what makes multiple franking valuable and what is just normal stuff. To determine this, I have compiled 8 different criteria for which we would look at a franking. Not from the thematic standpoint just, but as traditional collectors and as postal historians as well, because we would also in these classes deal with multiple frankings. So these 8 criteria are, first of all, from which country is it? There are countries where mail is very common, and there are countries where you have really to look for good covers. Can be very, very different. We will see in a minute. The second is, what was the need for a mailing? Is it commercially, or just was it sent by a philatelist who wanted to have a nice item for his collection, but no need to empty envelopes sent or something like that. Yeah. The third criterion is the postage rate. Is it correctly franked or is it overfranked? The fourth is the type of stamp we will look at. There are definitives, which are at the counter for years, and there are some special stamps which are only there for some weeks, and that makes a huge difference in the availability of covers later. Of course, the condition of the item, then it was multiple frankings, the number of stamps which are on the cover, It's not just the more the better, but there is a high correlation with the number. The kind of usage, is it a normal standard letter, or is it registered, is an express letter, or other even more special varieties of usages? And the last is the postal treatment. Did it went through the post office, through the postal channel with no problems, or did the post office have to treat it specially due to whatever circumstances? I will show you some examples briefly for that. So these are the 8 criteria to look at, and to create a formula, I multiplied them. You know, in multiplication is when one of the figures is a 0, the total is a 0. So when a cover completely fails in one of these 8 criteria, it is worth nothing for us collectors. Yeah, and with a multiplication, of course, the number, the total number of points the score rises if several of them are really high values. We will go through that just briefly to show you the country. We could go to any end of the world. I've chosen the Pacific area now because there we have really big countries which are very common in philately, and we have unusual countries with a very small population, and it's very difficult to get any commercial cover from that area. Yeah. So a lot of mail we have from Australia or from New Zealand, for example. Yeah, they would be in the category 1. So in a formula which multiplies, it would have no impact. Yeah. However, a country like Papua New Guinea, for example, already would score higher. I would give it a 3 on the scale from 1 to 10. Oops, here we are, it's Papua New Guinea, a 3. Why? It has a population of 7 million, so it's not a small country. However, people don't like writing, especially in modern times. The last reporting of Papua New Guinea to the UPU was that in 2010, they had 0.52 mailings per inhabitant and year. Yeah, imagine in most European countries, for instance, we have between 200 and 350 mailings per inhabitant and year. That is normal. This is almost 1 per day and inhabitant. And in Papua New Guinea, it's half mailing per year and inhabitant. This is close to nothing. Yeah. So it is very difficult to find modern mail from these countries. And if you go some decades back, it was still a bit better. So in 1999, for instance, Papua New Guinea reported to the UPU 24 mailings per inhabitant. Yeah. In 2003, it dropped by 90%. Why? After the year 2000, most of the Australian and European and North American companies left the country for political reasons. Yeah. All the missionaries, almost all missionaries left the country in these years around the year 2000. So everything which is after 2000 for Papua New Guinea is quite scarce and difficult to find. Yeah. And then when 10 years ago, when part of the population got cell phones, then it almost dropped entirely to 0.5 mailing per year. Yeah. So now there is very little mail for it. So that makes it a 3 on this scale. Samoa, for instance, has much less inhabitants, And so on Samoa, for example, there is on the entire state of Samoa, on both islands, there is only one postman working on Samoa. 3 days he has a car, and 3 days in a week he does the tour from up here, from the the capital western part of Upolu Island. Once in a week he drives through the eastern part and reaches all villages, and 1 day in the week he goes to the second island, to Hawaii, by ferry, and that's all postal delivery which exists on Samoa. So they don't have much to do. So in my view, this is a solid 6 already. Or if we go to another one, which is Wallis and Futuna, which is a French island with a population of only 14,000 inhabitants. They had around 2000, they had 4 mailings per inhabitant, and that makes in total only 10,000 domestic and 50,000 foreign letters, which were mailed. And if 1 in 1,000 survives of this commercial mail, then we have 50 to 60 letters only per year from Wallis and Futuna. So quite scarce. The rarest in the Pacific is Niue Island. I give it a 10 because I have never got for my own collection. For instance, I have never got multiple franking from there. Some single frankings, I'm already happy with it. And here you see on the upper letter with a pigeon, you see the name Nancy Spatz on it. This is a full address on Niue. They don't have streets or post boxes or nothing. They just write the name of the person, and then the person will get the name. Nancy Spatz is from New Zealand, and she worked on a mission station, which is in the opposite of the main village on that island, and is already the complete address on Niue for domestic mail. And this lady from time to time was in New Zealand, and then you have foreign letters to her. Yeah. So this is very rare, and multiple frankings from Niue. Still, I have a fail on that. I've never seen one for my bird collection. So this is an overview of the countries. We have roughly now 220 countries issuing stamps. And according to the number of mail they have, and according to the number of collectors who keep them, you can make an estimate of how rare this is. I come to the second criterion, which is the need for a mailing in this specific case of an envelope which survived. If it did not go, if you have just a plain cover with stamps, maybe cancelled to order, it did not go through the postal system, then it's a 0, and the entire item is of no value to us philatelists. If it's philatelic mail, it doesn't create any extra value. If it is commercial mail influenced by a collector, it's a bit more. If it's purely commercial, then it's really good, as it should be. In postal history, this would be, of course, a requirement to have a 3 on it. A lot of letters were sent in the Pacific region for the postmarks, not for the stamps. So in Papua New Guinea or on Samoa, you had small postal agencies and collectors, mainly in Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain, and the United States. They wanted to get these postmarks, so they sent from time to time some letters to the postal agencies and asked them for postmarks. And so some frankings came into existence. However, they are philatelic mail. Even if they look nice, we must be aware that they are philatelic. This is a nice looking item. It's a multiple 4. It's properly framed, but Bruno Janssons sent it to Hyunga Postal Agency to get the postmark and the registration label that post office. So there was no content in it. So a philatelic item, even if it's a nice one. Commercial mail, which is influenced by a collector. This are, for instance, these letters from Kiribati and Aitutaki post offices, because some collectors ask them to sell stamps to them. And then they send the stamps under letter. So this is commercial, but without the activity of the collector, these covers would not be in existence. Same refers to some frankings. Here, for example, you have a card. I'm sure you are very familiar with Papua New Guinea Pidgin English, but if you read it, if you pronounce it, you can read the message. Happy Christmas, Nagut Pela Nu Ya. Sounds like Happy Christmas and a good New Year. Yeah, that's the content. And it is sent to someone in Germany who is member of the Papua New Guinea Stamp Collector Society. So the senders, they knew that this guy, Peter Oelke, collects birds on stamps. So they try to find some bird stamps at the post office counter. As a New Year greeting, it is commercial mail. But in the way it comes, it is still influenced by the fact that the addressee is a bird stamp collector. Yeah, so not the fully commercial attitude as we would like it in postal history. Same with this cover, which I explained to you earlier, which my father sent to my mother, and I asked my father to put these stamps on it. Yeah. Purely commercial is certainly something like this. Richard Olber, officer in charge for the United Nations unit, don't know what DP is, but UN is United Development something. So this is clearly commercial mail with no impact of stamp collectors. Yeah, so that would be a 3. The third aspect of our formula is the postage rate. Is it correct or is it not? If it's completely misfranked, then franking is worth nothing philatelically. Yeah? It may be slightly overfranked, for example, to reach a certain multiple franking. So in case I just switch back, in this case, for instance, it's overfranked by some 4 stamps would not have been enough. 5 stamps is a little bit too much. So this is slightly overfranked, and this reduces the value of such a cover. If you know it's slightly overfranked, it reduces the value by about 50%. If you are not sure, but it looks as it might be overfranked, then you are better conservative and you deduct a bit of the value. My proposal is 20% off. And when it's definitively a correct franking, then this is a value as it should be. Yeah, and it cannot be better than being a correct franking, of course. This is why in this formula, there's nothing more higher than a 1 for that. How do you find out that it is a definitively correct franking? Postal historians, of course, they do have all the postage rates of their area available. However, in thematic philately, we collect material from all over the world. And so we don't have these lists, especially not from small countries and from all periods. But you can try to find identical frankings from different correspondences. And if you find them, then you can be pretty sure that both are correct. Because if they would be wrong probably in a different way. Yeah. If you find several 29 Seniti stamps on registered letter to the United States, then you can assume that it was the stamp for it. Or here you have in the Pacific Island, you have a Pacific airmail rate. So the airmail rate to Australia and to Fiji from Tuvalu scene is the same. And if you see there are identical frankings from different correspondences to different addresses, then it should be right. Or sometimes you can compare the full multiple frankings as a postage check. Here, for instance, you have on both covers, you have 6 stamps of 35 TINA. So this should be fine for the registered mail of the second grade. Sometimes there can be different combinations. For instance, 180 can be franked by 2 stamps of 90 or by 3 stamps of 60. If you find such pair of item, you can be almost sure both are correctly franked. Let's come to the different type of stamps which we have, which influence the value of a multiple franking. So we have definitives, we have special stamps, special denominations also of definitives which are less common and to special usages. So we can give something between a 1 and factor 1 to factor 3. The most common are the definitives with the common denominations. They make 95% of all mailings from the countries which we find. Yeah, if you have a special stamp, then it's much more unlikely that you find a cover with it. Here, as an example, I show 2 stamps which come from a miniature sheet. So single stamps from miniature sheets are quite uncommon as frankings. Yeah. Or here you have stamps like 85, which was issued for an uncommon purpose, not for the normal purpose, but here for registered letters for special services. Yeah, so that's better than the normal definitives. Or you have the high denominations like 2 kina, which already was a lot of money, and here it paid a registered letter airmail to the United States. So to find them as single or multiple frankings is already quite difficult, and so they double the value compared to normal frankings. Even higher, 5 kina for registered domestic, but a very heavy letter. So also an uncommon single franking. Or what is even better, if you have special positions in the sheet, like a Tête-Bêche pair, for example, they don't come very often on cover. Yeah? Or you have stamps printed to private order. Most stamps printed to private order remain in mint condition in the albums for collecting purposes. Printed to private order stamps on cover are quite scarce in general, and if you find something for your theme, then this is a good finding and it triples the value compared to normal stamps in my view. And one further example are the emergency overprints. Many countries who don't print their own stamps, they rely on overprints when they change postage rates and the new stamps are not delivered in time. You find this with many Caribbean islands, for instance, and you find this in the Pacific as well, like on Aitutaki, when they raised the postage from 30 to 36 cent, then they needed for some weeks, for a couple of weeks, they needed an overprinted stamp to reach the rate. Or on Niuafo'ou, for instance, Tin Can Island, part of Tonga, just a couple of hundred inhabitants, difficult to get commercial mail, so it would be a 9 in the country list from Niuafo'ou. They raised the postage for worldwide airmail from 29 seniti, which we have seen earlier, to 57 seniti. And so they got a couple of sheets which were manually overprinted in Nuku'alofa in the main village of Tonga. Yeah. This is from my initial, an example from my initial cover, which I've shown to you with all these 23 2-cent stamps. And I told you that they needed these for the use up of the earlier 16 and 80-cent stamps before they, when they raised the postage by 2 cents for this inland standard letter. So when they came to 20 cents, they didn't have the proper number of stamps, so a number of postal agencies received stamps with emergency overprints. Some had still a number of 16 cents stamps, so then they received 4 cent overprints. 5 of them would also make the new rate, of course, but they were intended to use them along with the 16-cent stamp, or the 2 cent from 16 to 80 or from 80 to 20 as additional stamps to complement them and to reach the new postage rate. These emergency overprints were only used for some days or some weeks. And so commercial mail with multiple frankings, of course, are quite scarce, and that is the reason why they rank a bit higher. We come to the condition of the items. If the stamps on the cover have major defects, don't touch the item, it's worth nothing. Minor defects reduce the value, for instance, to half of the value. So the traces, this must be as the traces of usage, for example, which you find sometimes in the item descriptions in auction catalogs, they reduce, of course, the value. If you have average quality, then it's fine. If you have a general clean impression, then it's worth more. These are items, for instance, which have a very, very clean appearance, general appearance. So they are worth more than average condition. Yeah. Multiple frankings in very good quality, like this one here, are of course very difficult to find. The number of items plays a role. The number you have on the cover. So I've made a list here with 5 different categories. We go through it briefly. Single frankings and multiple frankings, multiple 2. They don't add anything on the value of a cover. This is what you find 90–95% of the instances. The other multiples are scarcer and they are more desirable. So multiples 3 and 4, I go through that. So you have the multiples 3 and 4. Yeah, this is the next category. And this, I would say, then is also factor 2. It doubles the value because only a very, very small percentage of the letters have more than 2 stamps on it. If you have a multiple 6, 8, and 10, so the pair numbers, then it's the next category. Here is one multiple franking with 6 stamps on it, or here you have one multiple 8. Yeah, that is really rare. If you have time and you want to browse through one of the platforms where you can buy covers, you need to search a while to find a multiple 6, 8, or 10. And in reasonable condition, absolutely not common and worth to be included with an exhibit anyway. Oops, this was the 8, that was the multiple 6. Here's the multiple 8. The odd numbers are more difficult, even more difficult than the pair numbers. Yeah, you can make a statistical census about it, and you will see that even a multiple 5 is absolutely not easy to get. So it's already in a better quality, in a better category. And here, the normal usage, for instance, of the small values, which you can find as multiple 5, is to complement another value, like here 5 and 45, to reach the common postage of 50. But these used in odd numbers on cover is a very rare exception. Here you have a multiple 7. Or here you have a multiple 12. This is beyond 10, also now the pair numbers. Quite rare material. You can look years to find one for your own collection. And of course, top is the odd numbers larger than 20. Here the multiple 23, which we have seen in the beginning, or it's higher. I think this is my highest franking I found from the Pacific region for my bird collection. 32 stamps to frank the cover of a heavy parcel, inland parcel, domestic parcel in Tonga. We have to look briefly at the usage of stamps, the different types of usage we have. So we have the common usages, standard letters, airmail letters, postcards, printed matter in the lower weight rates. This is all common stuff. It's when you have registered mail, it starts to get a little bit uncommon with it. Here you have a special services letter, which is uncommon, or you have special rates, for instance, for notice cards of films which were developed and which can be collected now. So in Papua New Guinea, they had a special rate. They could send this for a reduced rate. So that is quite uncommon already. Or if you have a money order here with an express surcharge, of course, then you are coming to the really rare usages. And to find this as a single or multiple franking is a real exception. Yeah. Or here you have the certificate of mailing of an ordinary parcel, which also is a very uncommon usage of stamps. And of course, in a formula like we have them here, they score considerably higher. The last is a postal treatment. Postal treatment can be the normal treatment, as we have seen it with the examples so far. But there are also a number of special treatments. All of you who do postal history know of these. For instance, insufficient postage for email. It has a postage due on it, or even here in this instance, the stamp was used as a postage due stamp. So that makes it then a bit more interesting. It's not a postage due in this case. I'm sorry. Here in this case, the letter was given back to the sender with a marking insufficient postage, additional 23 cents required, and the sender added the 23 stamps, cent stamps to make the 26-cent rate for an email letter to Tonga. Yeah. So that's a very interesting treatment. Or here you have crash mail, disaster mail, and so received in damaged condition at Matuku post office. And so that is a special treatment. Of course, you have this disaster mail as well from the shipwreck events in the 19th century. They are much more worse, of course, but also in modern philately, you can have this special treatment. Return to sender, for example, not be developed, could not be delivered. Here again, something which went first to the wrong place was then forwarded to the other one. Unfortunately, in the New Hebrides, there is a port villa and a villa, both towns, and so it could be confused where the letter should go to. And incorrect address, please return to sender, and that from Niue, from this 1,600 inhabitants country. is already something very difficult to find. Yeah, insufficient address here. All examples of special treatment which make the cover even a little bit more attractive than the franking would be. The addressee passed away, so had to be returned to Papua New Guinea, or you have a pakbo, for instance. So with a two-country franking. First, the stamp, Fijian stamp, was used for the franking at the ship post office and accepted in Fijian waters. And then the letter was forwarded from Tonga, from Nuku'alofa, to Australia. So the airmail postage airmail fee was added to that in Tongan currency, in 14 Seniti. So also special treatment, quite nice. Or you have then you have relief cancellations. Like here, you have just a straight date on it instead of the normal date stamp, which could have been in repair during that time, so that for a couple of days the post office didn't have other postmarks to use. Yeah. Skip this. It's all colorful, but here you have, for instance, the tax for 6 ordinary articles to be collected as charges to pay 6 of 2 cents. In Norfolk, you could send inland letters unstamped on Norfolk Island for 2 cents. A normal letter would be 1 cent. So this was then as a postage due collected from the recipient. Yeah, quite uncommon. Here it looks like a normal multiple 3 franking, but in fact only 2 stamps for 20 ceni were franked initially. Then the cover was given back to the sender because the letter rate was 30 ceni, and the sender 2 days later, 31st of March, this was 29th of March, 2 days later, the sender had added the missing stamp so that the letter could go through the system. So we have seen a formula. Now in the end of my presentation, I simply show you 2 examples of how you could calculate the value of your cover which you are looking at. Let us take this example first. It's a multiple 2 from Fiji, registered letter. So the country would score factor 3. It is pure commercial mail. It may be, I'm not sure if it's overfranked or not, so I'm conservative. If I'm not sure, I cannot give it the full value. It may be correct, but maybe a little bit too much. These are normal definitives, which do not enhance the value. It's an average quality, it's a multiple 2, so that is all common. But the usage is as registered is already a bit uncommon. It is normal treatment. If you multiply these 8 figures, you come to 15 points. So that is already more than nothing. Yeah, it's already a nice letter because it's from a nice country and it's commercial. However, it cannot compete, for example, with this letter. It's a multiple 6 from Papua New Guinea. And also unregistered letter, 6 nice owls. If you look at it, Papua New Guinea is also a 3 in the country score. It's commercial. This is definitively correct franking. I have found some other such letters which have exactly the same franking in the same year. It is a special stamp. It was only available at the counters, post office counters, for a couple of weeks. It has a very clean general impression. It is a multiple 6, which is much better than the multiple 2. Uncommon usage registered. Normal treatment makes, if you multiply it, 162 points. And that is already a lot. Yeah. If you calculate your covers by that way, you would probably need a good number of nice collecting items to reach such a score. Okay, that's the end. I'm sorry, this was a little bit longer than it is usual in our academy here. So thank you very much for being patient with me, and I hope you will now enjoy your hunt for multiple rankings for your own collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Damian. And we appreciate the point of view. It's very, very interesting the way that you came up with that point structure. I don't know if there are any questions for Damian. Damian, I have quite a few. I took some notes here because the pointing system you show us is, to me, is very interesting in the way of arriving to material selection. 2 points that I like to make. One is on the multi-franking. Usually the content in the letter is quite heavy and the condition of that cover will not be as pristine as it could be. So is there any ammunition in the way of multi-franking has to be more forgiving with the condition in the end, because it could be a fantastic cover that is totally smudged at the edges, or, you know, even crease or things like that. What is your perspective on that in order to come up to a good value, point-wise?
That is a very, very interesting point you're making. So I'm coming back to this formula for that. And here the condition, if it's really bad, yeah, then you put a 0 on it and you don't collect it.
Sure.
Okay. If you say, okay, you can tolerate these imperfections, especially when it was a heavier letter, you're right, yeah, then you have to live with it. Of course, it reduces the total score in the value. Yeah, but a very good franking, say a heavy printed mail or printed matter or something like that, yeah, will earn the scores in the other categories. Yeah. Okay. So a nice multiple franking will score higher in all these other categories. And so in this case, it will also end up with a high score, even if one category is low. Yeah. So when you ask me as a collector, of course, I'm always looking for the best possible item in condition.
Sure.
Yeah. But the best possible is not the best, it is the best possible. Okay. And you have some categories where you can assume that you never find it in pristine condition. And Henry, you just made some good examples for it, where you have to reduce your expectancy for such condition.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind a follow-up, and maybe this could be a live thing. I have this item, and I would like to get your opinion of it. Of course, it's not thematic, but it's a, you know what, let me turn off my background so it can be seen in a better way. Bear with me for a moment. Oops, cannot turn it on.
Henry, may I just ask a question meanwhile from what you were talking about earlier, the question you asked earlier?
Sure, Lawrence, just go ahead.
Hi, Damian. This is actually what you just spoke about, something I've been battling with for the past 2 months. I have one item which is extremely rare, undercover mail from Abu Dhabi to Israel, and the content, it was passed through a touring company, label from the touring company, and the condition is extremely bad. It's crumpled, and it's folded, and I know why it was folded, because quite often it was put in someone's pocket. And the question is, if you display something like that, it's modern. Okay, it's the 1980s. So you're going to lose a lot of points on condition, but where are you going to get the other points, seeing as how it's a very modern item? I can say it's very, very rare or whatever, but still, it's only from the last, it's modern.
Yeah. So now we're coming to an interesting point where we have to switch the perspective a little bit. In thematic philately, we do not have the criterion of importance. Yeah, spoken for general theme. Of course, you would say your theme is more important than my theme, and I would say no. Birds is the most important theme in the world. Yeah, so we don't distinguish. However, in material, in fact, even if it's not written in the rules, in fact, we have the criterion of importance. So there are important, philatelically important items. And if they are unique, or they are the first of or something, they are what they are. You cannot change the quality of it. Yeah.
Of course not.
For example, I had the same considerations as you had with one letter, which is the first incoming letter in New Zealand postal history receiving a postmark. So that is one of the 3 or 4 key items of collecting New Zealand postal history. And there's only one first.
Of course.
And the condition is very bad. Yeah. So even I need to reconstruct the postmark because the town name Kororarika, for sweet the penguin tastes, could not be easily being read and so on. But this is an important cover which cannot be duplicated.
Most covers can't be duplicated.
Yes.
Postal history is unique.
Yes, in this case, I emphasize importance. You can duplicate, you can substitute rare items with another rare item.
That's true.
Yeah. So, but you cannot substitute an important item with another important item because it is important. It's a key item, and you need to show it if you're in the top range. So, and this means that in philately, we would say if it is an important item, of course, important items must also be rare. Then, if you have the best possible quality of an important item, you can always show it in a competitive exhibit. If you have an item which is just rare, you go for another rare item in the same in a better quality. Yeah. So this is the explanation, and it refers to all classes of exhibiting. This is not just in thematic philately, postal historians, traditional collectors, postal stationery collectors, and so on. They would have always the same explanation to say when it is really important and it is not in better condition, then I can show it. Yeah, rarity I can substitute.
Damian, I would like to show you one, I would say cover or wrapper, and I would like to get your opinion on pointing just to get this. I'm gonna pin my screen because it's quite big. This is the item. It is almost the full sheet of this stamp. It's a religion-related stamp. Of course, it's a mailing that goes to England. It goes through customs, and it has this label here at the bottom indicating that, okay, the post office apologized for whatever or something in that. Now, the stamps are not in good condition. Obviously, this is not paper, it's just a fabric, which is kind of dirty, and I don't know. So how would you point an item like that? Number one, if it goes into, and if you allow me one more thing, number one, if we were to put this in a thematic exhibit, it basically is taking more than 2 pages. So would that be considered like too big for the subject maybe dilutes the purpose of it. I don't know. I'm just wondering what your opinion is about.
So starting with the last part then is to put it in an exhibit or not in thematic philately would depend on the significance of the stamp illustration for the general theme. If it is just a small sidearm, it just shows an aspect in a small sidearm of the theme, yeah, then it's probably not worth to spend a quarter of a frame for it, which is roughly is.
Okay.
Yeah? Because you lose the space. If it is an aspect, these stamps show an aspect which is right in the center of the theme, then it is well worth to give a quarter of a frame for it. Yeah. So here it depends on the significance, or you can say on the relevance of the illustration for the theme. The other matter is the quality. My first question would be: there are 2 stamps missing. Did they fall off? If they fall off, does this fit with the excuse of the post office, which you cited? For instance, that it could be handled properly. If that is the case, you have a very good excuse. You can say this is not the fault of the sender, and it's not the fault of the post office receiving the mail and putting it en route, but it happened during the transport. Yeah, that would be better. If this is due to a bad handling by the sender or by the post office sending it, then it's already a major defect if stamps fall off, especially if you treat as a multiple franking. If you treat it for some other markings, additional markings on the way, then the franking is not so important. But tonight or today for you, we are dealing with multiple frankings. And so if a multiple franking is not complete, in my view, this would already be a major defect.
Okay. Yeah, my opinion, and this is just personal opinion, it has a full sheet of this stamp and there is an error right in the middle. 2 aren't there, but considering the size of the content, I would imagine that during handling, something happened. It's amazing that the rest is still here. I would have thought that.
Of course.
2 is minor.
Yeah, if you refer to a variety of a stamp or something like that, yeah, okay. Then of course you have a very good point, because here you can prove the position of a variety in the full frame, and you have it used on cover, which is absolutely spectacular. If you show it as a multiple franking, you say, okay, 50 or how many it was, 50 stamps were needed to pay this rate, yeah, then it's of course a pity if 2 are missing.
Okay.
So it depends a bit. In a traditional treatment, treating a variety, for instance, and the positioning of a variety in a printing sheet, then it's rather fine than in postal history when you would treat the rate.
Okay, thank you. Any other question over there?
Henry, you have a request in the chat.
Okay, let me see. Oh, there is one question for you, Damian. They asked me to translate it to you. Okay. Damian, congratulations. Thank you for your presentation. One question. This is from Glauber. He says, one question. In relation to quantity and diversity of postal items, do you think that there are some themes that could be better developed than others?
Absolutely, definitively, yes. Yes, that is a fact. So the choice of the theme determines the philatelic options you have.
Okay.
In most cases, all of us would not know, because we choose a theme because we like it. We don't make a full research in the beginning of what is available before choosing a theme. This might be different with postal history or traditional philately. There it's more evident. You see at a glance, is this an important subject, you could say, in traditional philately and postal history, or is it an unimportant subject? Yeah, and this is not so evident in thematic philately, but for some themes it's clear. You can, I've shown you some examples from a bird collection. Of course, you have more opportunities with bird than you have with dinosaurs. Yeah, that's quite clear. So that means the philatelic limitation is already in the definition of a theme. And there are differences, and this must be accepted by the collectors. Yeah, that some have themes which don't have the same chances philatelically to find the same quality of material than others have.
Okay.
And then it obviously comes down to how you take better material and somehow find a way to add it in.
Sorry, Lawrence, I didn't get the point of the question. What I should reply.
No, I was commenting on. Continue your comment. You said that sometimes you can't find the good material, and that's when you start doing innovation in order to try to take better material to put it in the exhibit.
Yeah,
that's when the fun starts.
It is absolutely. It is a challenge. Soon you reach the 98 or 90% line of what is possible with your exhibit. Yeah, because the last few pieces and items are as difficult as all the rest is.
¿Eso contestó tu pregunta, Glauber?
Sí, gracias.
Okay.
Muchas gracias.
Henry, you have another question in the Mo chat.
Okay. Paolo has he raised his hand. Go ahead, Paolo.
Yes, one question. Hola a todos. Hi, Damian.
Paolo.
One question about single franking. You mentioned at the beginning we don't like too much because it takes space or they waste space. But then you show a lot of single franking with special treatment, particular usage. So can we say that single franking is also allowed in those cases? And before you answer, just a small comment. Very, very nice presentation. Is also a way using those franking to show that stamps that we believe have been issued only for collectors have been actually used on letters and cards. So that's, I think, a good way to show them differently from just mint examples.
Yes. So that's a very good point, Paolo. First of all, I went a little back in history of exhibiting when going back to the 1970s, and by that time people really showed easy material just to fill half of the page, and that is what the recommendation derives from. And of course it is very appropriate if you have some special treatment on the letter. And so you see on this formula which I developed, which is not exact mathematics, of course, yeah, but it gives you a feeling of the factors and how they interact, and also a single franking, which can only get 1 point by number, yeah, it can make its score in the other categories. Yeah, so there are very good single frankings, of course, and they can be exhibited in thematic philately. Yeah, so there's no general restriction to that. And the second part, Paolo, is now interesting to show that some stamps were really used in a postal system. those stamps which are given out more or less for the collectors. Yeah? Sometimes you find, so the worst stamps which we have in the FRP list are the emirate stamps of the late 1960s, early 1970s. They were thought that they had never been at the counter of these post offices, Ajman, Fujairah, and so on and so on. Yeah, Manama and Qatar is not amongst them, by the way. And however, from time to time, you find commercial mail being franked with them. Single and multiple frankings are extremely rare. In 95 out of 100 cases, if you ever find 100 cases, you will have mixed frankings in that time, because most denominations were small and the senders, mainly European engineers being employed in the oil industry in that region in the 1960s, they sent colorful exhibits. They were not philatelists. They sent colorful letters, covers with as many different stamps as possible to reach the franking. However, this is commercial mail, yeah? And if you can prove that they were at the post office counter, yeah, then of course you make material exhibitable, if that word exists, which we usually say, take it out of your exhibit. It's not a real stamp. It was just by an agency. Yeah. And I'm always happy if I get this. One example is the Grenadines of St. Vincent, for instance. There's no purpose that they issue stamps, of course. It's just one small island belonging to another, not such a small island, St. Vincent. However, recently I found a franking with a letter from there to a radio station on Montserrat, where he was participating in a radio event. Yeah, and of course I'm happy. I found a commercial mail with a stamp where everybody says it has never been sold to that post office, if there is even a post office counter on that island. Yeah.
Yeah. Damian, I have another question I'm going to translate for you, but let me share my screen because this has an item attached to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. The question here is, the topic is Antarctica. And 4 of these stamps definitely are related to it, but it has an additional stamp unrelated. Would this still be a good item for an Antarctica exhibit?
Now it is a mixed franking, that's evident.
Yes.
Yeah. And usually we recommend not to show that material, to look for better material, because all additional stamps detract from the theme which is developed. Yeah, okay. And so therefore, even if it's most probably a proper franking, yeah, therefore we do not consider it to be an outstanding item for thematic philately. It's not forbidden to use it. However, in every jury critique, the jurors would recommend to replace it.
Okay, perfect. Juan, ¿le agarraste eso? Te lo traduzco.
Si me puedes traducir, por favor,
sí.
Henry, breve, súper breve.
El sobre es digamos, de imagen mixta, y por esa razón no es recomendable ponerlo en la colección, porque durante la devolución del jurado te pueden decir que busques un mejor material de ese tipo. El hecho de que la estampilla esa en la esquina inferior derecha está ahí es el problema.
Ok, vamos. Muchas gracias.
Now the big question, what if the stamp was in the back of the cover and we don't show it? That will be applicable, right?
Yes, of course, you can always try to cheat.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't make a difference. So I cannot imagine that a collector is happy with an item where he knows that he's only showing part of it, and he hides away some other parts. And so I could never enjoy. Then, if I would be the owner of such a cover, I would not show it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
But it's
thank
not
you.
forbidden. Just to be clear, yeah.
Sure.
So it is just that the recommendation is there is better material than mixed franking. Try to find it.
Okay. Perfecto. Any other question or comment? Mauricio.
Hi, Damian. I just have a comment. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. Very informative. I wrote down a few points that will be useful for me in the future. Just one comment also on that very nice covers that you showed from this island of Niue. That very interesting address can also be used in some places here in Honduras. And even in this center, you can just write the name of the person and the town, and it's delivered to that person, especially in very small towns where everyone knows each other. So it can also be done here as well. Very short addresses. And even to some people, even in larger cities, people who are relatively well known, even if the address is incomplete, they are delivered, or even not only incomplete, even wrong addresses, but with the right name, they are delivered because the person at the post office, they know the recipient and they deliver the letter to them. So it was really nice to see that new letter. Also, thank you again. And I was also going to show multiple, but it became a mixed franking with your explanation, so I cannot show this. I sent it to Henry. It has the full sheet here, and it has overprint, and then the overprint on the overprint, because that happened here a lot, also overprints.
Yeah.
So we had an issue from the 1950s that lasted until 2010. Because it was overprinted, then overprinted again, and then overprinted again. So we had that multiple. So, but thank you.
The postal historians, Mauricio, the postal historians, they open a path for such material, which in generally would not be recommended. But if you think if you say, for instance, you have different overprints on the thing, you have the full sheet on it.
Is the full sheet?
On such spectacular item, you have some additional values, usually the small values, which are necessary then to make the right rate. Then postal historians speak of a dominated cover. A dominated cover is where everybody would point to the full sheet and the other stamps and so on and say, this is a cover of it. Yeah, okay. There is something else. This is a sideline. This is a small path in postal history. But in case of really spectacular material, otherwise, you can use this term dominated cover, and then decide to show it. You should not do it. I didn't mention it in my presentation because in 99% of the cases, it's simply a mixed franking. Dominated cover is reserved for the really important items, like you show it here. This is one. It's evident. It's 50 some of one kind, and you have the different overprints on it.
It's 25. The whole sheet is 25.
25 plus
25, plus a block of 5, and it's it was printed matter. So so we have the markings and Have
you printed matter even registered?
Register, yeah, we can register. Printed matter can be registered here.
Yes, of course. So registered, heavy registered printed matter per se is already a nice type of usage. Yeah, and then you have these 30 stamps on it, and so.
Yeah.
So I think postal historians would accept if you use it with their terminology as a dominated letter.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Great. Thematic is always difficult to follow for all the rules it has. So I've been a postal history and traditional collector all my life. I try to attempt to do a thematic, and the more I hear, the more I get like confused. But this is important because there are so many aspects to cover. And that's why my congratulations to all the thematic collectors, because it's very difficult to make a successful thematic exhibit. And I appreciate that. I really appreciate it, and I really mean it. It's very difficult, but that's a good thing.
And so I think here the major point is that in thematic philately, because it is complex, but postal history isn't easy as well in the traditional philately, not to misunderstand me, but over the years and decades, we have developed a long list of recommendations.
Yes, and that's a key. That's a keyword, long list, because in thematic you have
long
like
list.
so many.
The other keyword is recommendations. So the number of really tough rules. Yeah, most people mistake then recommendations as rules.
Yes,
and recommendations are hints how it usually works to make a better exhibit out of the exhibit which is now. Yeah, these are the recommendations, and the set of rules per se is not much longer than in the other classes. Yeah, so the highest number of rules are in astrophilately. By far the longest number of rules.
yes.
Yeah. But the recommendations are a lot because you have to consider so many things, and you need to compromise philatelic and thematic aspects to find out what the best items for a specific page would be.
Sure.
And the order of the items on the page is much more decisive than it would be in traditional philately or in postal history. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's not easy. It is a challenge, but many people like it because it is a challenge.
Exactly. That's the appealing part. Damian, if you don't mind me to ask you one question, kind of unrelated, and to all the other successful thematic collectors here. What is your opinion of the open class versus the thematic?
Yeah. That's a wonderful invention. Yeah. Because we have so many collectors in the world who are not pure philatelists, who are also philatelists. They have a collection of different things, and a good part of it is philately. Yeah. So, and now we open a path for them to exhibit the full collection as far as it is two-dimensional. Otherwise, we cannot cope at our exhibitions with the frames and so on. Yeah. But that is really good. And the other is that this class, it is fully seen that this class would need a number of years, say a decade or so, to develop into its best form. Same as in other classes, first we have a number of exhibitors who start to exhibit and so on, and then traditions build up on what is perceived as being successful, what is perceived as being nice. And this has to develop in open philately as well. And I'm very glad that the FIP board decided just at the meeting of in Cape Town, when I got the message to build a bureau. So a commission, later on a commission for open philately, an own commission, which is not linked with the other classes. Yeah? Because open philately can have the traditional approach, philately approach as a treatment, can have a postal history treatment, and can have a thematic treatment. All three treatments are possible. Open philately per se is a definition of material which opens philately to other kinds of collectibles. Yeah, and this is why I'm very happy with this class, and we are already seeing a number of very good exhibits, and so I really look forward seeing what will develop over the next, let's say, 10 years or something in this class. I think we will have same outstanding exhibits as we have them in traditional philately and postal history and thematic and in all other competitive classes.
Thank you for that comment. And actually, with clarification, I was erroneously under the impression that open philately closely related to thematic in the way of treatment, but you mentioned also that a traditional can expand that way, a postal history can expand that way. So.
Yeah, of course. So I've already seen a number of these exhibits back in, when was it, 1999 in Melbourne. They had an experimental FIP class there with some 50, 60 exhibits. And but they had no clear definition of that class. And some of these exhibits, which were postal history and traditional exhibits, they fully match with what is the intention of open philately, because they had traditional material and in it, and they showed something of the historical background around of how creating the stamps, for instance, or they had postal history in it with non-philatelic material supporting it. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a national exhibition in Switzerland, and there was one exhibit which treated the Napoleonic War in Switzerland in the year 1799, a decisive year for the Swiss history. Yeah, some decisions done by the generals in a slightly different way in Switzerland would not be what it is now. So really decisive. Of course, he has a number of good items which went through the military or civil mail, but he supports it with all these historic collectibles of the time. Yeah, and so that is a very nice opportunity to do postal history in open philately. Yeah. So, and let's see what happens, what will develop over the next years. I'm quite confident that it will not be just B or C class of thematic philately. So like in postal history to see that we have a 6C in thematic philately. I don't think so. And installing a commission for it on FIP level with a bureau discussing and developing the major regulations now after a couple of years of experimenting on it is just a good initiative.
Oh yeah, it shows advancement, definitely. That's great. Thank you for that. I don't see any other hand raised, so with that, I guess we're going to close it. And Damian, thanks again. That was a good presentation and good follow-up questions.
Thank you very much for participating. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Día de mañana.